Tuesday, July 2nd, 2024 has turned out to be quite a stormy day in the country called Kenya. The promised protests led by our Gen Z unfolded in many parts of the country. A clear indication that this is not going to end tomorrow or even soon. And in a minute, I will discuss why this is not ending soon and the main obstacle to restoring normalcy in the country called Kenya. But first, a quick highlight of what unfolded today. And let us start with a very shocking incident in Mombasa. Normally very peaceful Mombasa. Watu wa pwani hawana neno. Hawataki matata, hawataki fujo. Yes, that Mombasa exploded today. And there was a super fascinating incident where a private citizen who was very offended, very worked up by the fact that the demonstrations had frustrated his business day, came out with a firearm, na akarusha marisasi into the crowd. We are told injuring 3 people. I say we are told injury because that is the official story. But eyewitnesses, those who were there, tell a different story. And they are doubting about the survival of at least one of those victims, if not more. And of course this provoked protesters. But the man was miraculously saved by the police. And people asking, where were the police when the man was firing? And some are saying the arrival, the timing of the arrival was suspect and may tell another story. But after this individual was rescued, the crowd went berserk and burned some vehicles. Waiyaki Way in Nairobi, close to the Kangemi slums, was bad. Very bad. Kenyatta Avenue, both in Nairobi and in Nakuru, both those 2 cities, in case you didn't know, have a Kenyatta Avenue. Those Kenyatta Avenues were serious. As we enter the 3rd week of protests, anti-Ruto protests, it started as usual, very quietly. But Migori appeared on the map very early in the day. And so did Kisumu. Kisumu was interesting because protesters yet again went to State Lodge Kisumu, and knelt down in front of the very heavy security presence blocking the road to State Lodge Kisumu. Kitengela and Mlolongo were also hotspots. But the big surprise of the day was very remote, Wote in Makueni County, which exploded. Now you realize that what is happening here is that the protests are reaching rural areas. That is significant and very telling. It suggests that this thing may be moving towards being classified as a grassroots movement. And you know how powerful any grassroots movement is. Now, casual observers of the Kenyan situation may be wondering, these protests started as Anti-Finance Bill 2024. Anti-Finance Bill 2024 is no more. So why have the protests not stopped? At least, why have tensions in the country not gone down? That is the question many who may not be familiar with the Kenyan situation may be asking. And the answer is very simple. And it can be summarized in 2 words. Trust deficit. Now the opposite of a deficit is a surplus. Okay? And let us start with another politician called Raila and ODM, very well known to Kenyans, who has a trust surplus. Now in politics, a trust surplus is critical. It has saved many political careers. It has enabled many regimes to continue in power for longer than anybody predicted. And Raila Amolo Odinga is very lucky because he has a huge trust surplus. And that is why when Raila makes moves, which the people don't like, they seem to magically forgive him. They seem to magically give him the benefit of doubt. Why? Because he has got a trust surplus. Now fast forward to the present. President William Samoei Ruto has a very serious trust deficit. And this is the biggest obstacle by far in ending the current crisis in Kenya. And that is why it makes a lot of sense to anybody who's trying to sort out issues in Kenya that Ruto must go. Okay? Ruto told us he has done away with Finance Bill 2024. Yeah, but Parliament, which is in recess, has not yet actualized that. So, the people of Kenya don't believe him. Believe it or not, trust deficit. Ruto has said, rather he has insinuated, that he is going to change, that is addressing the concerns of the Gen Zs and protesters, and even wants to meet them. But then tensions in the country are still high. People are still saying Ruto must go. Reason? Trust deficit. And to make matters worse, this trust deficit is growing by the day. Because, for instance, a lot of the demands of the Gen Zs can be implemented immediately without even any meeting, through an instrument called an executive order. Indeed, there are many other things Ruto can do, even without an executive order, that will at the very least stop the mounting of the trust deficit against him. For instance, he can replace all the Kenyans who are members of his community, who have been appointed to plum jobs in parastatals and various government organizations. This, of course, is not breaking news. It has been highlighted in our press for a very long time. Government appointments. Ruto has been accused of making tribal appointments. That can be corrected immediately at the stroke of a pen. And there are so many other things he can do using the power of the executive to show Kenyans that he's serious. But instead, the very clear signals coming from President Ruto, especially from that Sunday interview, are, I ain't done with you yet. Okay? You have me right now, but I'm going to recover and I'm going to rebound. Na mtajua hamjui. Those are the signals Kenyans are getting from the executive. Very loud and clear. Bottom line, in this kind of scenario, there is no way we're even going to begin to address this crisis unless and until Ruto leaves office. Okay? That should be clear. In a crisis, clear thinking is very important. And that is exactly what I'm driving at here. I'm not being personal. These are just facts of life. But there was another big headline from this 2nd day of July 2024. The ODM party had a meeting of its central committee, and then immediately after they held a presser, and Raila Amolo Odinga was there, but he did not speak. All he did was to wait for the press to be ready, and then introduced the Secretary General of the ODM party, Edwin Sifuna, to make a statement on behalf of the Central Committee of the ODM party. And the highlight of their statement was to urge for the resignation of President Ruto. They also announced that they're going to start a process very soon to recall 6 elected members of the party who not only voted yes for the ill-fated Finance Bill 2024, but have consistently shown the people who elected them the middle finger. They have consistently done that in their actions, in their speech, etc., etc. And the party wants to use these as an example for the others who are shaky, who have been doing their own things in parliament instead of respecting the wishes of those who elected them into office. And something very strange happened during this presser. After Raila introduced Edwin Sifuna, he moved right to the back of the group of members of ODM's Central Committee who had this presser. And then, shortly after that, before the event had even come to an end, he slipped away quietly. Phantom Raila. Now, in my opinion, ODM are the only political party in the country that has been very smart in the way they play their politics. For starters, many have felt that ODM have been too quiet for too long, because we're already in the 3rd week of these protests, and this is the first major statement from the ODM party. Many feel that they have taken too long. I don't agree. In my opinion, ODM know their opponents very well. Imagine if they had gotten into this mix very early. Imagine if Raila had started payukering very early. We all know what would have happened. UDA would have said, you see, this is the evidence. ODM are supporting these protests. ODM are supporting protests that damage property. You know the usual stories from UDA, which hardly ever make sense. It is all propaganda, a narrative designed to keep them in power, oppressing Kenyans. That's all it is. And so ODM have been very smart to avoid that by keeping quiet. Kudos, ODM. The other very important thing that has happened politically that I believe we should take note of is, notice, this statement was not from Azimio. It was from the ODM party. The Wiper party has issued their own statements. In fact, they started talking much earlier, right at the beginning of this mess. And so, can we conclude that Azimio is kaput? I don't think so. But, admittedly, there is major realignment, political realignment, going on. I predict that Azimio will re-emerge sometime in the future. But for now, it is every political party for itself. And then the saddest news of all. The police, despite already drawing a lot of attention from the international community, international media, despite so many complaints from Kenyans, bado wanafiatua marisasi kwa raia. That is so sad. Although today, we also saw for the first time the use of rubber bullets. Okay? And of course, many people wish that the police would at least stick only to rubber bullets as a last resort. Although, I don't know if you know this, rubber bullets are not completely harmless. In fact, Amnesty International, in one of the reports on their websites, say that between the year 1990 and 2027, rubber bullets killed 53 people in incidences around the world and permanently disabled 300 others. Still, as horrible as that is, it is no comparison to real resources, real bullets. Well, the day is still unfolding as I came in to make this video. And I'm sure we're going to hear a lot more of what unfolded today. But I just felt that I should make the effort to give you the highlights and what I've given you today. Now, very quickly before I go, we have reached the month of gifting to Kumekucha Chris. Now, those who are members of this channel, those who are familiar with this channel, those who have been with me for decades, know exactly what I'm talking about. It is not an idea that I birthed. It came from one of you, my supporters, who carries the name of a very famous prophet, Isaiah. May God bless you until you get shocked. Because looking back, I don't know how I would have made it through doing what I do under the circumstances that I do it without this twice a year gifting. I will forever be grateful. Asanteni sana na mbarikiwe mpaka mshangae. Until next time, this is Chris Kumekucha.